So the A Train is I guess it's called the owner operator of the
I like,
Changing Lanes Radio podcast
yeah.
and In the Zone Sports podcast, their audio podcast that he has, and we're here to talk a little bit about podcasting, man. So what's going on?
Hey, I'm just saying right now that we're doing Changing Lanes Radio, New Lane. Oh, well, excuse me, In the Zone. I'm thinking about my other shows that I used to
Yeah,
do.
yeah. Now you used to have other podcasts.
I
Tell me about
did.
those.
I actually did In the Zone as a video podcast for a while. I did it for about a year, and then I did a show called New Lane Radio. That was actually a live show. It was an internet show.
Okay.
So I did that for a year. So I got some experience in doing podcasting and things.
So you took a break and then you decided to get back into it because it is your passion that.
Yeah, you could say that I took a break, but it's like I kind of wanted to do my own thing. So that's why I decided to break off from that and decided to move on and do something I wanted to do.
So you were part of a podcasting crew, a team.
Yeah, I was. I
So
actually was.
so you're Lionel Richie and you left the Commodores, is what you did.
You can say that, but it was more of yeah, I will stick with that. We'll stick with that.
Yeah,
I don't really think
yeah.
I can't go nowhere else with that. I'm
So-
gonna leave it at that.
So have you had any of your old podcast mates on your new podcast?
I have not. Mostly everybody's doing their own thing now. They're working, and
Yeah.
so I really haven't had the opportunity to see, if they really want to be on the broadcast. Because I'm doing it during the afternoons. I don't do it. I usually do it during the day. I don't do it during like on the weekends or anything. I'm doing weekdays.
Oh, okay.
So that's probably the main reason why I can't really get them, because I want to get it out there before the weekend and
Gotcha.
make sure everybody gets a chance to hear it before they get the show.
I heard that. Yeah. Okay. So your podcasts are recorded in like actually at a radio station in a studio, so you have access to microphones and recorders and things like that.
That is correct. I do. So I was very fortunate.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think that was the only way I was going to be able to get the show across if I was doing that. I could do it in other aspects, like doing it off a computer or so, but you don't get that same quality if you do it from a laptop. And you're doing it from a radio station, you get a better sound. So
Well, you got the mic processors and the limiters and all that kind of stuff like that, so it helps out a lot.
I get
But-
to control the volume.
but yeah, that's true. Yeah, but now tell me, what is Changing Lanes? What is the podcast? What is that about? Changing Lanes Radio.
Changing Lanes Radio is a hour-long weekly podcast, and it's usually it's a talk show.
Okay.
So we talk about different things, but we change up the subject. Like, you never know when we're going to change it up. So, and it leads to a lot of shenanigans. It becomes funny, it's comedy, but we still talk about serious topics that going on in the world, and especially going on in our city, in our country. One of our favorite segments we like to talk about is idiots on the road. And yeah, if you get a chance to hear it, we like to talk about bad drivers, and how, like, I've had a couple, my co-hosts have had a couple. So we like to mention those. We don't ever call them by name because, heck, we don't even know who they are.
Right.
We just know it just happens to us, and we had to tell the story. So
heard that.
it's pretty interesting.
So, about how many topics on average do you cover in an episode of Changing Lanes Radio?
We usually try to cover at least 3.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes the topics can lead to other things, and that's the name of the show, Changing Lanes, because the conversation never stays the same.
Okay. Now, why radio? Why'd you tag radio? Because it's not on the radio, but it's just like radio.
It's a cool name, and I just had it sounds really cool. Believe it or not, the name came from a friend of mine, my best man at my wedding. He's my college roommate. We were in communications together at Alabama A&M. Shout out to the Bulldogs. But we came together and said, if we ever do something together, we're going to do a sitcom. We're going to call it Changing Lanes. We're going to base it on your life. I was like, hold on now. Wait a minute. You're not just going to sit there and just put this on me and say that you're going to do a sitcom about me. Anybody else would be like, oh, that'd be an honor. But my life, you don't want to know about my life. So I'm like, no. But I just kept the name because it stuck, and I was like, I loved it. So I just kept it.
So Changing Lanes Radio is basically like pop culture and news with some comedy in it. It's an hour long. Now, In the Zone is a sports podcast. How long is that?
That's 30 minutes. I decided to keep that short and sweet, get straight to the point. And, I want to make sure that I wanted to get as many sports topics as I could. I usually talk about basketball and baseball. Those are my favorites. I usually get in football when football season comes around.
Mm-hmm.
So that's when all those sports will start coming into play.
Now, do you have the same host for both shows? I mean, co-host?
No, it's just me on In the Zone.
Okay.
In the Zone Radio is just me. I'm starting to find like more guests, that's in the sports field to come on the program. And that's when I'll actually expand it a little bit to an hour or so, however long I want to do it. But I usually do 30 minutes just to myself.
Okay. Do you find it harder to do it by yourself as opposed to when you have your co-host
Yes.
with you? It's tough, isn't it tough?
It is really tough because you have to have material that, one, it has to entertain. You have to have material that is actually going on right now. You can talk about past stories, but if you really keep up with sports, it's usually spot on.
Mm-hmm.
You can't do a past story unless it's intriguing.
Right.
And nobody want to hear about a loss that happened a month ago when it doesn't even matter anymore. It's gone, and now you got to have something new. You got to have something fresh. I don't want to hear about like a month ago hearing about Terrell Owens. I just want to throw his name out there.
Right.
Or hearing about some crazy mess that go on. It's usually up to date right then and there.
Right.
You don't talk about it then. It's just a story that is past.
Have you ever encouraged someone to start their own podcast?
Yes, I have, because people have come to me asking, like, oh, I heard your podcast. How do I get into that? And so, I try to get a little bit into it. It gets tough at times, trying to explain this to people. But if you want to do it, you have to really put your mind and your heart into it, because without it, it's going to be another show. You got to have some kind of structure to it as well.
We're talking with the A-Train. He has a couple of podcasts, Changing Lanes Radio and also In the Zone. And is it In the Zone Radio or just In the Zone?
It's In the Zone Radio. I had to keep the radio name.
In the Zone Radio then.
I had to do that. So.
So for those who don't know what a podcast is, basically it's an audio show that people can download and listen to on their smartphones or their MP3 players on demand whenever they want. Different episodes, usually weekly or bi-weekly. You do yours each one. You do 2 a week, right? One for each show?
I do each show per week. So, one Changing Lanes, I'm doing one this week.
Mm-hmm.
Then I'll be doing, I've done In the Zone. I'm just trying to get it uploaded. And PodOmatic is really messing with me right now. And I'm not happy.
Now, PodOmatic is the site that hosts your audio. They're the one who store your audio. And then you tell people to go to changinglanesradio.podomatic.com.
Yeah, I usually have the link up. It'll be changinglanes.podomatic. Somebody already took Changing Lanes Radio, so I just took that one, condensed it, and it's .podomatic.com. And then In the Zone Radio, I was able to get the whole name, so I kept it that way.
Okay. So for people who don't know this kind of stuff, like the hosting site, PodOmatic, does that cost money to host your audio?
No, it's actually free. If you want to have like storage space, then it will cost. But like when you're starting, it's free. It's free for me. Mm-hmm. The only thing that's going to be different is when I start gaining, I have a lot more. If I wanted more storage space, I'll have to actually put some money into it. And it's a year fee. And it's right now $100. So about so much, you get about $8 something a month, $9 a month. So
let's talk about like monetizing a podcast. Are you at that point yet?
No. Right now, I would love to have somebody to advertise the show. Them coming in and promoting their business. I would love to do that, but right now at this point, it's not happening. So,
right. But you're still building your brand, though.
Right. Exactly. I'm working on me before I decide I want to branch out. And somebody says, "Oh, I want to advertise with your show." I was like, "Okay, just give me the money."
I heard that. So, is this something that you want to have happen eventually, though?
Eventually, I actually was talking with some people out on the East Coast about putting a show there. Mm-hmm. It's a small, like doing a small radio station on the internet, and they have live shows. That's the only difference. Mm-hmm. There's like podcasts we can't kind of do because we want to make sure we keep it interactive. So I was like, okay, if that's the case, then there is other options. So I haven't said that I wanted to go through that just yet. I'm just working on the podcast.
Okay. Well, if I could offer a suggestion, you should think about maybe once a month or once a week going live.
You know what? that has been an option.
Yeah.
And so, I would like all things, you got to keep your options open.
Sure.
So,
Absolutely.
a once a month live show would be perfect. Just making sure I have the time and then finding the right spot to do it. So that's all plays into the in doing podcasts.
I tell people all the time that I think that everybody has a story that is worthy of telling. A podcast in a form of a podcast, a
That is
vlog, which is a video blog where you actually involve a video camera and things like that. For those who don't know, but I really believe that everybody has a story.
They do, but it's how you bring that story, because just because you have the story and you can tell it, it's how you tell it.
Mm-hmm.
You tell it in a way where it's not understandable, then podcasting is probably not for you.
Mm-hmm.
But if you have an awesome voice and it can really catch on to a listener, oh, you got it made. You can do a podcast, no problem. Just make sure you have the equipment to do so.
Well, yeah, because I think audio. I do a lot of video things,
Yeah.
but audio is half of the video. If your audio is bad, then
Exactly.
you're wasting your time because people are not going to stay around for it. But I tell people all the time that if you're interested in podcasting, probably you already have at least half of the equipment that you need.
Yeah.
One is a smartphone which can record audio or video.
Oh, yeah.
And the second is a computer where you can edit. And there are free programs that let you edit audio, and then to have an account, because you can actually upload audio on YouTube and have that there.
Exactly.
And
That'll be my show.
Yeah, and that would be just completely free
Right.
to do that. So it's possible to do that. But I think for people who always wanted a career in broadcasting but never pursued it for whatever reason, maybe they started a family when they were young, maybe they just couldn't get around to it, maybe just the years have passed by. Well, now's your opportunity, because I really believe that podcasting levels the playing field. I think it gives everybody a voice, gives everybody a chance to be in the game. And you can monetize it. There are people on YouTube, this is what they do for a living. I read about one young lady who's in her mid-20s. She's clearing $50,000 a month.
Yeah, and mainly because she went out and told people about her show, and then she's like, well, I'm going to get paid for this, and that was a good decision on her part. If she's getting $50,000 a month, my goodness, do you know what I would do with $50,000 a month?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's there. It just depends, and not to say that you won't get there, because you will, but it does require a lot of work.
Without question, you got to have dead on content. You got to make sure you have a lot of listeners, to get the money to do that. That's how some YouTube superstars come into play.
Right.
They are getting a lot of hits. They're getting a lot of views, get a lot of listens. When you do that, it's perfect. You're pretty much set. All you have to do is find the right person that says, I'm ready to make you into a star, or want to take a chance on you.
Right.
So that's the big thing. I love that, seeing people that are doing that kind of thing. It's like, I want to get to that level too.
Now, what if someone came to you and says, I want to do a podcast and I want you to produce it so you can show me the ropes? Would you be willing to do something like that?
You know what? I probably would. It's just that
It takes time.
It would take time to figure out, okay, what is your content first? Then what is who you're going to have on the program?
Right.
Will you have the time to do it? Will you have the time to do it? You have to devote yourself to this. You can't just say, I just want a podcast, because you just want to get your voice out there. It takes a lot of time to put into this, because 30 minutes, an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, however much time, you have to have a lot of material. You have to keep the conversation going when you're doing a show. Now, if you want to incorporate music in it, that's fine. But just remember, when you incorporate music, make sure it's your own, or you're doing something, an instrumental brand, because a lot of people with music, like radio stations, not having that. So,
it's more the artist and the record companies who own it. They won't. They'll shut you down. Because it's copyrighted. So in essence, what you're doing is you're stealing. And you might think, well, it's just me. How many other people will think? What do you think, that you're got the original idea to do that? Everybody wants to do that and are doing it, and they get shut down all the time. So that is very true. If you're going to use music, you can't use music that you don't own or that is copyrighted and you don't have permission to use, because you will get shut down. And you don't want to do that. That's a whole road you don't want to go down.
I get nervous sometimes with that, because of it's certain music that you got a nice little beat to, and you want to put it through the show, and can't get the lyrics. I learned you can't get the lyrics. Some artists won't even allow you with the music.
Yeah, well, I mean, normally they won't even allow like an instrumental because that's their music. That's I mean, that's like taking the pants from a suit and leaving the jacket. I mean, it's still theirs, and they still want it. So I mean, I've told a lot of people that. I got a friend of mine who does some vlogging, and I tell him the most important thing of this whole thing is you have to be consistent. You can't like post something. And then not post again for 2 months, and then post again because they'll go away and they won't come back because they figure you gave up.
They'll lose. The chances. Like, oh, you ain't got another show. Okay, well, I'll do something else.
Yeah.
So
and that's the truth of the matter.
Everything fresh. That's why I've always kind of contemplated: do I want to add more during the week? That way, I keep them abreast of what's going on. That way, you keep your viewership. But I have to remember my timing. My timing. It's all about time. If you have it, you can do it. If you don't have that, don't try it. Because if you do that, you're going to overexert yourself, and then you're going to be like, wow, what did I get myself into? You got to kind of hang back once a week.
Yeah.
I think if you start off, you have to do once a week because you keep them going. You don't want to do it every day so quickly because you got to give them more. You got to wait for the next go round. That's why I like radio shows when they do weekly shows. Like when it has a stopping point, it's like, oh, I have to wait till the next go round. It's like your favorite TV show, Scandal. I think people are loving Scandal, and they're like, oh my God, I gotta wait till next week, or I gotta wait 3 weeks for the next show.
Yeah,
well, stay on that. That's the big thing about it.
Yeah, because even when they're gone for 3 weeks, they're always running promos on ABC saying Scandal coming back in 2 weeks, back in a week. And that's what you got to do. And part of being a successful podcaster is constant promotion. You've always got to be on social media telling people where you are. You got to always, I mean, it's not just cracking a microphone for 60 minutes, spending 30 minutes editing it, and then throwing it up and thinking you're going to get 10,000 listeners. Exactly. It doesn't work that way because you got to tell them where you are. You got to tell them over and over again where you are. I mean, in a sense, it works like radio. We always have to tell people what station they're listening to, even though they know what station they're listening to. They're always you can't take the chance. You've got to get in there and do that. So
because all the time you always get a new listener because first time listeners are the best because they get a chance to see what you have and then they can tell somebody else. And that way you want to keep those. That way you get more first-time listeners and more first-time listeners. That's why it's so cool that you have to keep your material fresh. You have to make sure you're doing more than just starting, do once a week. After that, when you start getting established, start doing it twice, 3 times, maybe even 5 days a week. And you make sure you get your voice heard out there. You can even get paid for it, too.
That's great. That's great advice. And I would also add that if you're going to do that, you have to keep in mind a lot of times you're going to be a one-man show.
Yeah.
So, someone like myself, I do video vlogging, and I have to schedule the interviews. I have to do the interviews. I have to edit the interviews. I have to post the interviews. I've got to go on social media and tell it. And I'm doing all this by myself with no help at all. So the most I can really do are probably 2, maybe 3 videos a week because it's just me. Because I also have a job. And I also have a wife. I've got children and I've got other obligations. So, I mean, I can only devote so much time to this. I wish I could do more, but I can't. But so you can don't bite off more than you can chew, I guess is my point.
Exactly. If I had an assistant doing most of these things, it could cut some of the fat for me. I get it all done, but it's just me. So when you do that, you have to really push yourself to promote it. And sometimes it's going to get rough, but you can't do so. And keep throwing it out there, because you never know who's going to be listening. That way, when you get that big opportunity coming your way, you'll be ready and you'll have something already for them. That way, are you ready to take a chance on me? And they're like, yes, we're ready to. So that's the things you have to do to, when you're doing a successful podcast.
The A-Train is with us, and he has 2 audio podcasts. One is called Changing Lanes Radio, and the other one is called In the Zone Radio. One, the In the Zone is about sports. And Changing Lanes Radio is about pop culture, serious stuff, sometimes some comedy, things like that.
Yeah.
So how supportive is your family?
Oh, my family is real supportive of what I'm doing. They're real proud, especially my mother and father. They're proud of the things that's going on with me right now because I always wanted to be in this position, and my wife has definitely been supportive of what I do. That's why I love my family, because when chips are down, they know they got my back, and they are some God-fearing people, and I love them so much.
So, have you had any family members on your shows?
Not yet. We haven't got to that point just yet, but because I think they more behind the scenes anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So they like you go ahead and do your thing. I'm
Right.
gonna support you from behind.
Right. Well, you nothing wrong with that at all. I mean, you don't want people on who don't want to be on.
Exactly.
So that's cool. So on a so when you do Changing Lanes Radio, which is an hour long,
Right.
do you go exactly an hour? Do you go an hour and a half and trim it down to an hour?
I do my best. I learned like Price is Right taping. Price is Right taping is exactly 1 hour,
Mm-hmm.
and so they trim it down whatever needs to be, and they do it like that. So when we do material, we try to do it as an hour as much as possible.
Mm-hmm.
I have incorporated music into the show, but I don't go long as everybody expected, because I want to get back to the topics at hand.
Mm-hmm.
So we want to make sure we get back to comedy and having some fun. You get to hear us act the fool.
Okay.
That's what we want. I don't want. I do the music, even though they like don't do it. You have to really be careful on
Yeah,
how
you
you
do.
do it.
Yeah.
So when I do it, I try to keep it as short as a minute, maybe a minute and a half,
Yeah.
and then after that, cut it right back to the topics.
Well, let me offer you a little bit of advice on that, man. A minute and a half don't even matter. It could be 10 seconds.
I know they say all the time, 10 seconds.
If they, I mean, it can be
It's
very
rough.
minimal if they flag it. Because they got software now that tracks that kind of stuff.
They do it, and they
So-
know how to do it well.
Yeah.
I was like, even YouTube has flagged people that has dropped music on stuff that ain't there.
Yeah.
You know, so it really gets ticky tacky. So that's why to give my advice to people: be careful when you do that.
Very
Don't do
careful.
talk. Just do talk, and make sure you do music, do original music. Okay.
So, what are some podcasts that you listen to, man?
I listen to Straight Outta Low Cash with Daryl Frierson. I listen to His and Hers on ESPN. They have a podcast. You know, they actually get up in the morning to do this podcast. So
Now, who is His and Hers? Is
His and Hers is with Jamel Hill.
okay?
And she does First Take.
Yeah.
I think she does Numbers Don't Lie, and Michael Smith.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
An
Okay.
American people. So and I listen to their podcast. It's really interesting, and they go a whole hour, no music.
But you know what? You could do that, man. You don't need
I
music.
could,
You
I
don't need
could,
music.
I could do that. It's just the thing right now. It's like you got to make sure if you do the topics, you got to stay with it.
Mm-hmm.
So as a start, I'm pretty sure as I grow, the music will stop.
So, who else do you watch or listen to?
There is I try to listen to sports podcasts, see
Okay.
how they do theirs, and
Gotcha.
excuse me, an idea of how they do their show, how they format their show.
Now, Daryl Frierson, I'm familiar with. I've known Daryl since he was just a little fella, a little boy, and I worked with his uncle for many years, Kevin Woodson.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, Daryl has a blog called From Ashy to Classy.
That's right.
And tell me the name again of his podcast.
It's Straight Outta Low Cash.
Okay.
Yeah, if you follow him on Facebook, he has his own page on Facebook too, called Straight Outta Low Cash. So
Okay.
check that out. It's it's getting some hits. He even gets email. So that's what's cool that he does. Email people, email him about stuff that's going on in their lives, and he wants to hear from their perspective. It's really interesting. I actually participated. I actually been on this show a couple times.
Oh, you have?
Yeah, I
Okay.
have.
Okay. Now, what is his podcast about?
His podcast is a variety of topics, that's going on, especially in the community, African American community. It could be anywhere with a baby mama drama or something like that, or dealing with a wife issue or something sports wise. It could be anything. It's basically hot topic kind of deal,
Mm-hmm.
and the conversation can get a little crazy, but it's all in good fun. Excuse me. I actually love it, man. You can download it. That's what I did.
Now, are your podcasts, speaking of downloading, are you available on iTunes to download?
I am. I actually am available on iTunes. I was actually shocked to figure out that I was on iTunes. because Daryl actually caught one of my shows and he said, "Yeah, I'm catching it on iTunes." I was like, "Really?" I was like, "I know I've seen the iTunes bar, and I was trying to set it up, and I was like, maybe I shouldn't." And he was like, "No, I can get the show right on my iTunes." I was like, "Oh yes, I am
Wow.
so happy about that."
That's a sign of hitting the big time right there. I'm not even on iTunes, so it's like
But
I keep saying I'm going to work at it and stuff like that. I just haven't got around to it yet. I mean, because that's great exposure if you can get on iTunes.
yeah, definitely, without question. You have somebody, you can have them in your pocket on your iPad, and if they still have them iPods,
Yeah.
you can do it that way. It's real interesting. I love it. I love it. This new media is awesome.
It is awesome. I love new media. Now, what's next though? What do you want to do next as far as podcasting goes?
Wow, as far as podcasting goes, I'm hoping for a 2 hour show. I want to do it daily. I almost want to do a live show, but I want to get my brand out first. Podcasting is something, I always wanted to do first. I'm like, that's what I want to do. And then after that, if I get enough hits, live show. And then when the live show goes, then we can take it anywhere.
Okay, so you have it in your mind. You have a formula, a path of where you want to go, which is
I
important.
want to do a lot of things, Tony. It's
Yeah.
just that right now, the radio thing is actually working out for me. And so I was like, I would stick to that. And when it's, hopefully, I hope it doesn't get tiring. I'm like, I don't want to do this no more. But I always want to keep radio in my mind because, with my background, what I doing in school, I actually got a chance to do some college radio. I've done some sports, so I kind of know a little bit, just a little bit, in my short time of how to participate in doing radio. And radio always will be there.
I heard that. It's in your blood.
Yeah, you know what? Everybody has came to me. A lot of my supporters are like, "You have an awesome voice." I actually started doing voiceovers through my church, so that's how they signified, "You have an awesome gift. You need to utilize that differently." So I was like, "I'll do that."
You should. You do have an awesome voice, and you should. I mean, voiceovers. There's voiceovers, and then there are voiceovers. And,
Yes, right, exactly.
And that's the path.
I'm doing that.
That's the path. There are actually some community colleges here that offer like a Saturday 4-hour course for about, I don't know, $40 you can take, and it'll introduce you to voiceovers to see if that's actually the field that you want to pursue. I encourage you to do that, man, because it used to be like when I got into radio. You had to have that voice. You had to have
the Ted Williams voice.
Yeah. And now, I mean, it's okay if you have it, but now what the thing is now is you have to be relatable. You have to sound relatable. You have to be able to bring the listener into this commercial you're doing and actually have them in there. They're actually called voice actors now, not voice over people. So
exactly.
So I encourage you, if that's an interest of yours, man, take one of those classes to see if it's something you would like to take to the next level, because you're young enough, man, where that could be your life right there. And
I know. You know what? I actually talked with, I can't think of his name off the top of my head, but he actually worked on Gremlins. And he did a voice for one of the Gremlins, and so he's like, "I'm doing this as a career. I'm doing this from my house."
Right.
So and he was talking about his studio that he had in his basement. It was like state of the art. So like, you know what? That is so interesting, and it intrigues you.
Yeah.
Things like that. So
I'm actually reading a book by Rodney Salisbury right now, who's a voiceover artist. And
name sounds so familiar.
Yeah. If you go to rodneysalisbury.com, you will you'll recognize his voice when you hear it, but then you'll see him, and you may remember him from a couple of appearances he made on BET a long time ago. But this is his life now, voiceover work, voice acting, and he does very well. So, well, man, I appreciate you spending some time with me, and getting a podcaster on to talk about podcasting sometimes is a challenge, man, but it's a wonderful outlet to get your voice out there. If you have strong feelings about something, an editorial, a movie review, a CD review, if you want to talk about pop culture for an hour or sports for a half hour, you can do that. I encourage everybody. If your favorite show is The Real Housewives of Atlanta, well, then do a 30-minute recap every week.
I know that there's a network here in St. Louis.
Really?
That does television shows. Like, they have one for Dexter. They had one for 24. Like, that was just the whole show. It was just about the characters, recaps of the show. I mean, it's there, folks.
Yeah.
If you want to do it, it is out there for you. You have the opportunity to do it. I have to say, I have to get a shout out to Mike Wilkerson. Mike Wilkerson is a guy that has his own network, and he's doing it out of St. Charles. He's doing some awesome things.
He just started following me, and I started following him, and he's invited me to come check out his studios. He's a very helpful man, and he's somebody in the podcasting community in St. Louis that if you're interested, you should get to know him because he's easy to find, and he's very helpful and is willing to help people. So big ups to Mike. Yeah,
he has came to me numerous times saying, please come to St. Charles and come do a show for me. And I sat there and I was like, I cannot get to St. Charles right now with the transportation that I have.
Yeah.
So I was like, the best thing I could do was, if possible, just try to get just a podcast out there to him, and he could just air it whatever way he want to do it. Right. That's fine. But I've seen some of the shows that he's done, and they're very informative. They're very entertaining. Another guy I know, Mark Bland, he does an awesome show too. It's called The Q, and it was podcasting before he went and started going live. So if there is a possibility where you can do podcasting first and then go live.
Yeah.
So
yeah. I mean, the road is open in any direction you want to go. It's just a matter of what you want to do, and then the biggest thing is to do it.
Exactly. That's it.
There you go. That's the A Train. He is the host of Changing Lanes Radio, an audio podcast you can get at changinglanesradio.podomatic.com, or you can get it on iTunes. Same thing for what's In the Zone Radio, exactly. inthezoneradio.podomatic.com, or you get that on iTunes. That's a sports podcast you can get. They're both audio podcasts. You can take them with you anywhere you go, to the gym or just on a long drive or a walk in Forest Park in St. Louis.
That's the way you throwing it out there. I was like, my goodness, somebody's on the treadmill listening to my show. That is awesome.
and then that's awesome. That's really awesome. So, well, congratulations on what you've done so far, man. I wish you much success. I've been on his show, full disclosure. I've been on Changing Lanes Radio, and I had a blast doing that. And you're going to go places, man. Thank you. Just keep pushing, man. Thank you so much for joining me.
I appreciate it so much, Tony. Thank you.